I will start by introducing myself. I am Sophie Benson. I'm a sustainability journalist. I focus on all things sustainable fashion. I write for various publications like Vogue Business and The Guardian, and I also am author of the book Sustainable Wardrobe. My focus is very much on sort of the systemic changes that we can drive through fashion, which is why I'm really, really excited for this fireside chat today about no sustainability without decolonisation. I'm really thrilled to be joined by co-founders of plant-based fashion brand Jiwya. And what I will do first is hand over to you two to introduce yourselves, please, and then we will get cracking with the conversation.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you so much for hosting and getting everybody reeled up for this. We are very excited for talking to you and just talking about this subject in general. So I'm Aishwarya. I am a textile scientist and I lead marketing, creatives. I'm the lead designer at Jiwya, apart from just doing the technical work with Adhiraj. How it started all for me is basically because being the insider as a textile engineer and scientist in many different roles and jobs and research, the frustration kind of built up over time that the system from inside is not really trying to change, no matter how much I was pushing. And that is the reason we share that frustration, I would say, and that is the reason why Jiwya started that. We wanted to show by action and creating a path for more people to come and follow a more ethical and more people and planet friendly version of fashion to exist. So that's very quickly about me and why I do what I do.
Great. Thank you for the whistle stop talk.
Hi, Sophie. I'm glad to be chatting with you here. My name is Adhiraj. I'm a textile scientist as well. And I look after the business aspects with business development and operations that goes on the back end of running the supply chain. And I'm equally passionate with Aishwarya running, getting all of that we're going to be talking towards. And it's great to be working on a plant-based solution for the fashion industry at large.
Absolutely agreed. So yeah, we touched a little bit on about your motivations, but I'd love to know what actually led you to kind of come together and to form this, and why did you decide it should be a brand? How did you go from, I guess, your initial frustrations to actually building what you have today?
So we know each other since 2013 when we were students at Institute of Chemical Technology in Mumbai, and we were studying our bachelor's in textile chemistry. And the best part of our course was we were being taught how a typical fashion or textile supply chain works, from the first fiber to until the fabric is ready, and then a little bit more about how the merchandising or how the pattern making and other things work. So we got a little window into the brand part of it, but a very large window into what happened before that, and very hands-on. While doing that, because it's also a school and course based in India, a lot of our parts are also related to how so many of these structures actually stemmed from grassroots arts and way a simple hand loom was made, how it inspired making a power loom, how a charkha or a spinning wheel led to the process of making yarns. So those were the things that were intertwined and taught very well. And as colleagues, we often talked about what we are learning is also part of a very big polluting system. And so many times the grassroots levels of things are much more sustainable in general. So sustainability as a word was not much talked about when we were studying until one of our professors introduced it to us. But we did understand the realms and differences of that field. So that happened. And I think when we were doing our first ever research projects individually, and I'm answering Adhiraj for the both of us here, one thing that came common in both of our work was we were constantly trying to avoid certain bad chemicals, although neither of our professors really asked us to do it. So we were given our individual research questions that this is what we want out of your bachelor's research, and like what would you give us out of it? Like find the answer. And I think as colleagues, we used to discuss like, okay, how is your research going? What are you doing? And that was the first point when we realized that we share the passion of removing what's bad in the system and do it through our work. And then that continued through the masters we were doing, through the research that we were doing, and the jobs we were working in. We constantly tried, and I guess the challenges kept getting bigger as we started part of the industry. That it was very easy, of course, as a student to make a research that probably may not be used much, but it's very difficult when you are standing in a mill and telling a typically dyed fabric that, hey, the component that you just use is probably a very bad dye. You should not be using that. And it wasn't just a small industry saying so. Even Fortune 500 mills where we worked would say similar sentences, who have all the possible money and I would say resources to try, at least try for change. So I guess that frustration kept building up, and there came a point where, and we as people were constantly trying to be more mindful and conscious in our personal lives. That, hey, at least, so it's very, I would say this is a climate journey that I feel most of the people go through, that a lot of things are going bad outside, but to calm your own anxiety, you try to do every little thing that you can. It starts from maybe a paper straw, but it goes to the level of going zero waste in your home, and somewhere in the journey you find out you're fit and you keep learning every day. So we were doing that, but then this thing kept coming back to us, that we literally learned this field from the ground up. Why are we not doing more about it? So I would say that one question, and I really answered it at large. I'll let Adhiraj add more things.
I just have a little bit to add. So I think what was appalling for me personally was when I was in the US, the amount of consumerism with regards to fast fashion, people buying $5 t-shirts, tossing it the next day after wearing it a couple of times. And all of these clothes becoming a problem for the governments of the world, because where it was ending up was the global south, with truckloads of, textile fashion industry being the third largest polluter of the world. We don't realize the clothes we wear can have a much larger impact in terms of environmental pollution. So that was where we thought, that has the most, that's where we can make the most impact. So people ask us, you are textile scientists, but why did you open a fashion brand? And that's the reason that we give that. That's where we can create the largest noise and make the biggest impact. So I think I would just wanted to add that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that leads really nicely on to kind of the rest of our conversation, because you mentioned about the impacts in the global south, and we're here to talk about decolonisation, and how you are combining the creativity of fashion with the potential for what you're doing to be a vehicle for decolonisation. It's becoming more of a widely known term, but I'd love for you to just delve in a little bit more about what it actually means in the context of fashion and how you're approaching it.
I would say it is in the very roots of Jiwya. So we were living in the US, we were working. The last job both of us worked was for a very high-tech bioresorbable material that it's basically used in surgeries. So very rewarding, honestly. The job was rewarding, that you're creating something that will help a person after surgery. But then, like Adhiraj mentioned, we realized that, yes, this is good, but the maximum pollution and bad things are happening in a field where we have the expertise to make a difference. So when we moved back to India, we sat with, being the researchers we are, we made the question, how can we create the cleanest possible fashion supply chain? So we sat with that question and we started dismantling one step after other. So for example, a cotton which starts from a farm goes immediately to ginning and pressing to remove seeds and separate fibers. Whereas if it goes from a farm to a charkha or a spinning wheel, they remove only the seeds, and even the shorter fibers get made into yarns. So the wastage is much lesser. Whereas in ginning and pressing, the shorter fibers are completely taken out and the linters are separated, sometimes sold at a smaller number only for fillings, sometimes never used. We have visited so many facilities where there is a warehouse filled with only cotton linters. It's feels like you could have done so much with it. Anyway, point being, we started with the first step and we realized this is what we have to do. We have to find out solutions that reduces waste, empowers people, and doesn't harm anybody in the process. And while answering that, it took us about 6 months, but the answer was using only regenerative material. However, the parallel part of it, the thought that you have to rethink a process, it actually led us to what decolonization means for us. So once colonialism took the global south, the colonizers quashed a lot of hyperlocal systems. I'm not saying they were the best. We definitely need technical advances to grow as a society in general, but quashing an existing system that works for that particular geography and then removing it altogether was the biggest harm that colonizers did, not just to materials and fields and soil, but also to the processes and the communities in general, or how it is understood. So, for example, malmal, which is commonly called as muslin, used to like it. It used to be grown from a variety of cotton crop which has a certain fiber length that used to grow in the eastern region of India and present day Bangladesh, which was not separated at that time. British colonizers wanted to use that soil only for growing indigo and conventional cotton and at times even opium. So they systemically quashed the weavers from making that material by first thing they started calling the material vulgar. It was the softest material you could ever touch. So naturally, a lot of Europeans started buying it, wearing it, and enjoying it. So it was called vulgar, which is a feminist issue, which we can talk some other day on some other webinar. But
we need another talk.
Yeah. So that is part one. And then they started not buying their fabrics, not using it enough, and so the crushing the system continually. And I have so many of these stories, so many of them that we have talked to the generational artisans themselves. So in so many ways, this the structure that we were building at Jiwya, that you have to rethink the entire supply chain to make it friendly and sustainable for the planet to use fashion in a controlled manner, is basically rethinking how colonizers crushed a lot of systems. And that is where the two mindsets came to us, that we are decolonizing fashion at the very root of Jivya, and giving it a name is now needed. And it came at the perfect time when we were planning to launch at London. So it also poetically made sense. And well, this wasn't planned, but our show happened at a 300-year-old textile and spice mill. So I was glad to know the fact.
Couldn't have aligned better. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I hope I answered your question, but that is where the decolonization aspect comes to the core of what we do for sustainable fashion.
Adhiraj, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I just want to say that India has always been known for having such a rich heritage and culture, especially with textiles, with the techniques that we use, with the prints that we use, with age-old techniques of hand embroidery, and it's basically going back to the roots and reclaiming what was always ours, and not obviously as Aishwarya said, modernizing it, but still being rooted, still using what is probably 1,000 years old, and then modernizing it, making it more palatable to the generation of today. So that is what we're trying to do through our designs, through everything that we do at Jivya, trying to preserve the heritage, but make it more modern for today's audience.
Yeah, in a way, sorry, one
No,
small
please.
sentence. In a way, we also want it to be known for what it is. That I am wearing a print that started from India. I could be wearing that in somewhere in London or somewhere in Hong Kong. But knowing that this is where it came from, I'm not saying it should be restricted to a certain area. I'm saying it should be known for what it is. I should be wearing a type of, I know so many types of embroideries that are very, I would say, local to Scottish culture or to certain areas of the US. And I want to know that, okay, this is where I got it from. And well, I am going to contradict myself a little bit here, but this is one good thing that colonization did. It gave us a universal language to talk to. So I think like everybody talks English because of it. It's a side effect that is, I would say, helping us in a way. If we can, why not use it to just understand and name what it is, and not appropriate certain arts or cultures or structures?
Absolutely. And, as we know, colonization has led to really sort of dominant structures across the global south. And when you were sort of looking into the heritage and trying to build that decolonisation, those localized systems into your operations. How did you find the process of it? Was it difficult to kind of find people who were doing things a different way? How was it to actually, you know, make these connections to the skills and processes that you wanted to access and showcase?
Go ahead.
I'm just going to start there, and then you can continue. So basically, we decided we wanted to present Indian arts to the world, and we wanted to work with grassroots textile artisans of India, and there are hundreds and thousands of them. We started with a few of them, and eventually we have over 150 master artisan clusters that we work with. And it was in a way difficult because uh, people today want everything cheap. They want everything affordable yet fashionable. That means using synthetic materials. That means using synthetic dyes, faster machinery, cost cutting. Not paying attention to quality. That's where we came in as textile scientists and convinced these artisans to work in a slow fashion way. Make something only 50 meters. It's okay if it is 25 pieces, but do it the best you can. Use the best quality materials. Use the best cotton that is locally available, and use plant-based dyes. So that is something that we had to sort of teach and collaborate with these artisans to make sure that we used only the decolonized version of the particular art form that we now present in our clothing.
Yeah, so it was like, let's say I'll give you example of one of our weavers. When we met him and his cluster, so how we started is at this time when we were traveling all across India and meeting the art clusters, the idea of Jiwya was not like, we weren't even incorporated and it wasn't completely solidified. We were still like, our materials were solidified, our plant-based materials were there. But then we started incorporating the heritage arts and learning more about it. So whenever we would visit an art cluster, a weaver or a hand block printer, we would just simply stay the day with them, learn their process at their village, understand what's going on. And I think in that journey, they would tell us a lot of things that, so my father used to do this, or my grandmother taught me how to use the thread like this, and so many of these details. So where Adhiraj mentions the challenge is what we try to explain and reason with them, that you just talked about a generational skill that is passed on to you. So how was it done generations ago? How was it done before these dyes came to be in your systems? What was also happening is, especially with a lot of hand block printers, is so they are used to using plant colors, using a wooden block, using soil and mud and many other things to resist the colors and keep layering and making beautiful prints. And then they wash it with river water or well water that is available in the area. Being plant colors, they dissolve in the soil and at times even nourish it, because there are no salts or other mordants used in it. No metal mordants, like natural mordants are used. They are used to this system, but now these dyes are replaced with synthetic dyes. Sometimes only the ones very cheaply available, most of them being azo dyes. We have seen villages filled with blue and red colored soil, and that soil is dying. So I guess as scientists, we did have a heart-to-heart talk with them that this wasn't the case when you were a kid, right? And then they would open up that yes, it wasn't. I have seen this soil to be very healthy, but then people are asking me to sell my art or the fabrics I make for 100 rupees a meter or like £2 a meter. How can I do that? So we had to really break through with them that, make a very small batch for us, the way probably your grandmother or grandfather would do. Let's try making that. And their only concern was, you are doing this experiment with us. Will you buy that entire meterage? And is it, yes, I'm making it for us. Please do that. So that assurance, that support is what, and some of them were already on the path. Some of them wanted to get this way. So with about 50% of them, it was like, just, I want to do this. And they were like, finally, somebody wants to do this. Let's go. And for some rest of them, it was just explaining and putting awareness a little bit. And so these people challenges are very hard to objectify on how and why it happened. But I feel that is our biggest win and our biggest I would say supply chain support system, where these artisans are every day learning a little bit, even though it's a very small number right now, that we can have this particular version, which is the cleaner, which can probably restore my own community and area. And that is the goal, that eventually they find out this option economical and financially stable enough that they can say no to the ones who are only asking for cheaper materials from them. So that's the longer goal, but that is how we have started towards that.
Mm. And I think that makes a really important point, because often when we talk about the human or the social side, we talk about it very separately to the environmental side, whereas you're talking about something that is really intertwined.
Mhm.
And what have you learned about how the two sort of feed into each other, and how do you navigate kind of having that conversation around sort of the right to clean land or the right to fair pay, also with the idea of how that feeds into the environment?
Um, I feel they do go hand in hand. You cannot separate the two, because we talk about how you shouldn't buy online from Amazon and buy local. That is basically introducing a concept that you reduce a lot of carbon footprint if you buy from your local vendor. Shouldn't
Hmm.
supply chains be as much hyperlocal as possible? And when we delve deeper into these grassroots clusters, we understood that these hyperlocal supply chains existed. All we have to do is allow them a scale, allow them a stage, use their materials and design that will put a global exposure to it so that they flourish.
Mm.
So, like I started with, that we do need modern techniques, but that doesn't mean we can't be rooted in how it started. We have to use the roots to grow a much, much bigger tree than just staying at a plant, something
Mm.
of that sort. So I would say the social and climate part go very, very much together, because these grassroots communities, if you change them at the core, they learn the aspects of sustainability without even using the word. So you're really making a grassroots impact. And I feel that's where the win comes through. Yeah. What do you have to say, Azraj?
I have two things to add. First, the whole concept of fair wage, didn't really occur to us as a concept, because it was,
Mm.
you have to pay everyone what they deserve. Like, everybody has to be happy with what they're doing. That's why you work, right? You get money, you're happy with what you're doing. That's first. And second, if they're going to pollute the rivers and water bodies, it's going to come to everybody. It's not like they're the only ones drinking from the river. It's going to
Mm.
destroy the community at large. So if you don't help people down the supply chain, it is going to come back to you at some point in time. So I think it is a community effort. When you are sort of at the top of the pyramid, when you're employing a lot of people, you have to ensure that they have the right resources to help the community at large, in whatever way that they can.
Hmm. Yeah, and I wish I wish all brands thought about wages in that sense, that actually people should be paid what they deserve. So hopefully, that cascades out to the wider industry.
Yeah.
And for the past few minutes, we've been talking about realistically what you have control over, so how things are made, the inputs, etc. But another kind of element of colonialism is the idea of waste colonialism, and the fact that, as we've all seen, mounting evidence of mountains of cast-offs from the global north being forced onto the global south. So how do we build end of life considerations into decolonization? How do we start to sort of join the two?
I feel there are two very simple ways for it. One is, first thing, brands have to take accountability. You have to understand where the waste from your material goes. I mean, I'm very happy that EU is finally making progress towards laws and rules in that direction, and I hope they implement them on all brands equally. So while giving the newer brands at least the avenue to be there, who are trying to make a change, because they definitely need a little more resources than an established brand. So
Mm.
one is definitely brands taking up responsibility for the materials that they create. And second is also the psychological or behavioral change that we have to bring in people about how much they purchase. Because,
Mhm,
of
mhm,
course, a lot of waste that goes out there is because of unsold goods. But a lot of
mhm,
it is also because we have really learned the idea of just not wearing something again or throwing it out there. And
mm,
I think that is one thing. So when we were answering questions for Jivya, this question came pretty much at the end, that how do we make people wear a Jivya piece for a long time? And the
mm,
answer came that if they are attached to a piece, because we tried to delve into our own, like, which is my favorite clothing and why is it my favorite?
Yeah.
It's my favorite because there's a story attached to it. It could be something that my mom got me long back, but it has so many memories that I want to keep it. Or it could be my graduation dress, or it could be my wedding dress, whatever. It has something special, a story. That's why you keep it. Most wedding dresses are just sitting in the closet for a lifetime, but the story is so prominent that you want to keep it. So
Absolutely.
how do we bring stories? And that's where the stories, and of course we were already incorporating arts, but that's where the way we talk about each piece framed itself, that we have to tell the story so that people want to preserve it. So that brings me to the waste question, that what we are trying to address with Jiwya is making people think to buy lesser, better, and pieces that mean something to you. If they mean something to you, the behavioral change starts. At least it starts that I may not throw it that often, or I'll try to repair it. I'll try to maybe give it to my sister or preserve it for probably my niece so that they can also enjoy wearing it because it carries a story. So that part is the difficult part, honestly. The easier is actually brands taking responsibility, and that's where we designed Jivyas and APR system, that we can any person buying from us can repair with us. They can also revamp for a fraction of cost. Like, let's say you've got a white shirt from us and you are fed up of wearing it, but instead of throwing, we request you to maybe ask the revamping option. Maybe we can add prints or handwork or embroidery or restyling a little bit, depending on the words. And you have a new piece that has a new life. And the last is reintroduction, where we give store credits for somebody who wants to throw it, to give it back to us, where we can figure out to responsibly compost it, because every piece of Jiwya is compostable, but we wouldn't want it to go in landfill. We would want to compost it then and there to enrich the soil in the process. And we call it Re-Jiwya program. So I would say, again, I'm going to my very question and the very statement with which we started. We are showing that it can be done. If a small brand can create systems in place, I don't think larger corporations have an excuse.
I mean, agreed. And let's just print that out and make that the headline. Let's make that the headline.
I'll make it. I'll put it at least in my office to start with.
And I think, you know, a lot of what you said there is obviously the responsible and the right thing to do, but also it makes business sense, you know, because you're keeping people coming back to you. I mean, you know, is that a consideration, you know, that actually you can build that into your business model and that you have longevity there as well?
Yeah, definitely. You build people who are loyal customers. They know that you care about them as a brand. So of course they're going to come back. So it definitely makes business sense to me. But he's the person to talk more on that part.
Well, I'm going to extrapolate it a little bit, but it's basically like when you buy a can of an aerated beverage and you get 10 cents back when you put it in recycling. You like, although it's not a lot of amount, you like that you get something back, right? Everybody, that's human nature, and you're going to go back and get another can tomorrow. So it's the same philosophy that, you know, when you're bored of that piece, when you're done with it, it's torn, it's worn out, you give it back, you get it either refreshed or you get a store credit. I mean, that always works, I think, in terms of business. So that is a good add-on to have, I would say.
Yeah, I think definitely, you know, everyone, when you're talking about behavior, we all need incentives to change. Otherwise it's really easy to kind of stick with your habits. So yeah, it's definitely smart. And for me, you know, the idea that I could send something back and it come back transformed, I think is really magical. It's a really beautiful idea. And you know, we mentioned in embroidery and the different kind of techniques and processes you use. And I've learned a lot in researching the brand about, you know, patterns and fabrics that I didn't realize, you know, had the heritage that they do. And we have started to talk about fashion as being extractive, but generally we're talking about resources and oil and cotton and land. But also there's starting to be some acknowledgement of the idea of extraction of cultural property. And so I'd love to know actually about what you're kind of reclaiming basically and what you're giving the correct history to.
I'll give simple examples. I started with Malmal, which was appropriated to the name muslin. So unfortunately, some types of Malmal are now extinct. The ones which used to be called like Bovinaire, because up to 90 to 92 meters of the fabric would pass through one single ring. That's soft and thin and beautiful it was. And you also have to understand this is a type of weave and fabric that started in a tropical country which has high temperatures. So it was very suitable to the skin and climate of that area and region. So that is one. So of course we don't have that level of finesse of Malmal, but we have about 50% finesse achieved already in the weaving that we do with our artisans who are beautiful, beautiful weavers. I mean, just looking at them is like poetry in progress. So Malmal is one fabric that we are actively reclaiming. Another is a variety of indigenous cotton, which is called Kala cotton. Kala basically means dark or black. It's a variety of cotton that only grows in drought-prone areas and definitely doesn't need pesticide. That is why it is slightly dull or dark in color. That's why it's called Kala cotton. But I call it the fashion of cotton of future because if it's growing in drought-prone areas, and it can really be very, very good and beautiful to scale up. So using
That's a very good
fiber.
point.
So that's a variety of fiber we use. So that is another way of reclaiming a lot of varieties of plants that were not systemically crushed. Then another thing that is easily known is paisley, which actually was the motif Ambi, which belongs to the larger global south area and has traveled a lot through the Silk Route. So nobody can pin a finger or a point on where it actually started because the Silk Route, a lot of trades happening, and the flora and fauna in this entire region having so many mangoes. It's very weirdly connected, but that is where the inspiration of the motif comes from. So calling it Ambi to start with, it's a very simple name. You can call it what it is and keep using it. I'm not saying don't use it. Please put it on those beautiful scarves and red and white colors, but call it what it is. So the language of it, using that motif in its original form. So some of the block prints that we use with our hand block printers are actually the motif styles dating as back as 500 years ago, because the wood that they used to have the blocks are teak or shisham, both types of wood, which actually last a long time if preserved well. So it's beautiful to see. Anytime you are in the area and if you're interested, I will take you to one of these artisans. They open their cupboards and then they bring out like, this belonged to my great grandfather. We have kept it and we only use it when we know that this particular block will be valued. So reclaiming those motifs back because they have it. They just want the right person who would give it justice. And then the last part is, so when we talk about artisans, of course, transparency and fair pay is very, very important. And so many times we also try to put a face to our artisans on our work, on our website. I even took a poster on the ramp and I showed it to the artisans, like, hey, you were all walking with me. And they were like, that's all good. We just want our art to be known to the world and us getting the right wage for it. It was so humbling that they don't want that big a face or a recognition. All they want is the truest form of their art to survive with good, like, proper money for them. So I would say these ways, preserving the way the art has always been there, allowing them to function and calling the names of the weaves or the motifs or the embroidery what it is. So these are all the parts which become the language of decolonization for us.
I would love to rifle through all the blocks of printing. It sounds really incredible. And also, really amazing that there isn't this kind of ego attached to it. And so in communicating and trying to link the credit again, how does that come through in your work? Are you putting it in the product descriptions? Are you telling stories online? How are you sort of actually getting the word out there of the history of these things?
So we have a very transparent website, firstly, to begin with. Every product has the story behind it on the website, or the product description has the speciality of the art form, the history behind it, what is special, how it is made. So that's first. Second, every product that goes into the customer's hand also has a tag which has an excerpt of the story from the website. Obviously, we can have the whole story. And then it also has numbers of sustainability. So how many hours it took to make that particular piece, because people need to understand if it is hand block printed, it goes through 10 to 12 different types of processes. It's not a very simple thing that you place the fabric, you put the color and print it. It's a whole process. So we actually make sure that the customer knows that it took 100 hours to make this particular piece. And with that, we also go a step further and introduce sustainability metrics in terms of carbon footprint, water saved, plastic saved, all of that for that particular piece, so that the person who's buying that knows their individual impact while buying something truly sustainable, truly plant-based.
And I guess then that also ties back into what you were saying earlier about the storytelling and the inherent value, that if it has, that it's taken 100 hours to make, for example, that it doesn't feel disposable to you.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then we have observed one of our customers once told us that because they have the numbers like that and it is their individual contribution, they kind of keep it as a bookmark, our tag. Because the pricing is inside. On the outer side, it only says that this piece saved this much water, this much electricity, and it had this much carbon footprint, and it was made in this many hours. So it becomes like, okay, my money did something good, kind of a feeling. So I'm very happy to know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely feels like a keepsake, and something that also is one of those things I feel like if someone compliments you, you almost want to tell them, oh, well, it was made by this person, it took this many hours to make. It's like a point of pride, I think.
Yeah.
And so, we've talked about what you're doing. I'd like to sort of zoom out a little bit and talk about the wider industry for a little bit, and maybe, what we need to be addressing, because I think, when I sort of step outside of my circle of sustainability, I've definitely had conversations where people think, oh, well, it's fixed now because X brand is doing this. But what we're seeing is, I think, sort of quite piecemeal approaches, small eco collections and, all that kind of thing. But we're not really seeing a systemic approach in the same way that you are doing. So where are you seeing brands focusing their efforts, and where would you like to see them focusing their efforts?
Basically, put your money where you're talking about it. I mean, I was absolutely heartbroken when I saw National Fiber Welding closing down their operations.
Me too. Yeah.
They had everything an alternative material needs.
Yeah.
They had the right pattern. They were using only regenerative material. They had scaled up. Now, I wouldn't go into what personal or professional things happen. I just feel that if they were a material company and if brands were buying enough, probably the problem could have been resolved without reaching the stage of closing shop. I'm not saying, of course, any business has its own challenges, but those challenges could have been resolved. And so that's one. Accepting newer materials with the understanding that it's new and it's going to be slightly different. You cannot expect it to function exactly like how the material you are most known to be using works like. Like if you want leather alternative, saying that it should have exactly the same shine, exactly the same feel, it's not going to work, because at the first place, that material, no matter how beautiful it looks or good it feels, it is killing an animal to start with. Same goes for polyester. No matter how shiny or flowy or drapey or how Christmassy or glittery that piece looks, it still is going to put billions of microplastics in your own drinking water. And it is going to come from sources that probably have deep sea drilling at near future, because the normal resources are clearly going down. So this understanding that the person who is bringing you alternatives has been really trying to not do any of this, and it's okay for that material to feel slightly different. Now, this challenge is with the marketing field. You have to tell your story correctly, and in my understanding, not enough money is put into the hands of these marketers to talk about this. So that's one that where I feel, of course, the consumer part is also there, but I would say consumers are a 30% part of this puzzle. That 60% is good, 40% marketers, and a good 40% just the material makers pushing their own material instead of a better material. So yes, that. And the second, holier than thou, that sustainable brand should only be holier than thou, whereas conventional businesses are allowed to make mistakes. Why? Let us learn. We may be wrong at times. Now, like Jiwya is not perfect. We are in a segment which is on the higher end of cost, because how we involve arts and so much handmade. But we do want to make impact and keep growing. So for that, we do need like sales to happen, so that we reach an economy of scale. So every business has its challenges. But if you are going to give me as a consumer or as a market or even a communicator constant challenges like, hey, you did not disclose your pricing, you did not disclose your art, you did not disclose the name of the artist, and you're not allowing me to focus on the actual work. So well, some of these things we have already addressed at Jiwya, and we come from a more scientific logical background, so many of those details were easier for us. It could be a person really trying to change. It could be a designer trying to change who may not know materials that much, but is really trying to put all the possible details. But as you are putting them on a pivotal platform where if they don't disclose a certain part, although they're trying, so I'm not really reaching the greenwashing part, just the ones who are really trying to make a difference. So these two things: one, not adopting the difference, and second, just expecting them to be the best possible from day one, not allowing them to make mistakes, is what the industry at large needs to look at if they really want to put better fashion for the planet.
Absolutely. I mean, what you just said really resonates. I've spoken to lots of smaller brands who have said that they really struggle with being held to impeccably high standards, whereas other brands who are probably doing much worse things aren't held to those standards. And Adhiraj, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to say, start somewhere. Like, there are a lot of people, friends, people who say, how do I do this? Start with something. Can you replace your plastic buttons with coconut shell buttons? Can you eliminate all sort of can you eliminate plastic? Can you replace plastic packaging with corrugated paper, recycled paper? Just start somewhere, and that's how you kind of build towards. If you try to build the perfect solution, you're never going to get at it. You try to solve one problem at hand, and that's how you're going to make the perfect product at the end of the day. And I think that's how we have developed at Jiwya as well. We didn't have a 100% solution right on day one. It is by experimenting and iterating that we are where we are now. So uh, I say that to people all the time, that you have to pick where there is the most problem and then innovate, use alternative materials, use natural plant-based materials, and go about it. And that's going to make a change, slow and steady, but nevertheless it's going to make an impact when you think of the industry at large.
Absolutely, yeah. Such a huge industry. The efforts can cascade out very, very quickly. And we're asking the question here about sustainability going hand in hand with decolonisation. Can we achieve sustainability without that? I'm assuming I probably know the answer, but then, and how could brands be building that into what they're doing?
I think, like, I'm taking cue from Adhiraj's recent answer. Start something as simple as maybe renaming one of your fabrics to like the source it came from. Do everything same. It could be the same shirt, everything correct. Just name the thing where it originated from. That's all. No, you don't even have to tell the story. You just name it. So start from something as simple as that. Then if you want to go a step up, maybe find clusters that again, I'm not saying we can dress the entire world only on handloom, but you can use power looms to be making better materials at a pace which is not crushing the people who work on those power looms. So slow down, give them time, give them water, eating and washroom breaks, for God's sake, and let them work better materials. So the reason fast fashion exists at the price and everything that it exists, because it only uses polyester and nylon and similar synthetic fibers, because they can run an extremely high speed on power looms without worrying about whether it is good quality or bad. Whereas if you introduce natural fibers, of course, there are breakages because these are natural fibers. They are not made with a certain thickness or intensity or density in mind. So that means if you have to slow down the power loom, you have to let the person work at the first line workers at a pace. So simple. If you replace natural fibers on those power looms, you have gone a much, much bigger step. And I would say that is decolonizing, because the systems that were set, the day power loom was made, it was made with the idea that now you can churn as much fabric as you want. No, you should not churn as much fabric as you want. You should churn how much is needed, and price it properly. It should not be just that it is a 5 pounds thing, because any single thing, and this I say every single time, and this is not my original quote, I've read it somewhere. If your cup of coffee and your t-shirt is costing the same, imagine who was not paid, because the coffee is being made in front of you, and a t-shirt goes through at least 12 hands, at least. It could be more. So it cannot justify paying that much. So you start by words, you start by names, you start by practices, you maybe go to material, then you go to colors, then you keep going on. So we do need to like decolonize first the way we think, because colonization asked us, because industrialization also came in the same period, so it asked us a model of only endless growth. It did not teach us the model that global south primarily had, was clusters that functioned in a controlled and conscious and mindful manner.
Yeah, I'm going to say something a little controversial. I am a brand owner, but I'm going to say hold your brands accountable. I mean, just look around where you shop. It's not that difficult. Look at the website. Look at what our value section says. Look at our ethos. You will know if the particular brand is paying their employees well, if they are using the right conditions, the right materials. Try to support as many local businesses as you can. As Aishwarya said, building a hyper local economy. Instead of having cotton from India, making it in China, putting the label in Europe and then saying made in Europe. There's such a big carbon footprint involved in that. Rather, support something that is meaningful, that is unique. That you would treasure for a long period of time, rather than buying something that everyone else is buying and that is becoming a trend. And I think that is how you help a business that is trying to create something meaningful and impactful in a decolonized way of some sorts, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can kind of go at it from both sides. Consumers can really drive it, but brands can be taking lots of steps as well.
Yeah.
And I'd really love to kind of start to roll towards the end by thinking about the future. Obviously, really excitingly, you just showed at your first London Fashion Week in September. So I'd love to explore the collection a little bit. If you could tell me about the concepts, the materials, the details, everything that went into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the name of the collection is Katidha. Katidha is a Sanskrit word that means how many times. So it's a question as a designer, so I really leave my science mind aside when I'm designing. And as a designer, it was just me simply asking, like, how many times will we fall for the same stories that do not value our art, or feed us bad materials, or give us pieces that do not matter enough. So sometimes it does feel that I am, or we are as a brand, talking about fashion so much, but then it also comes to the point that it is something you wear every day. You use it to express your personality. And how can you be comfortable? How many times will you be just putting your expression in a polluted, not so good way for yourself to start with? Forget the planet. The planet, I feel, will survive. It's us we are just polluting our own bodies and ecosystems and everything around us. So Katida is that question that I designed to ask, that how many times or in how many ways does somebody have to shout at you to bring that change? So it was an entire story or poem in a way. So there were 8 looks, and each look was an emotion or expression. The first one being accepting the past, that yes, colonization happened. Yes, it was not good, but I have to accept it. I have to accept it so that I can move on, so that I can bring change. And then, so that was the first look. And in a way, even its design, it was like there are 2 portions which are like this on the piece. It's basically just hugging your own past, that it happened, and let me accept that. So it literally started with that. And then from that, every piece had an emotion, from being open about learning, then adding transparency. So when I wanted to show transparency, that now that you're learning a better system, you should not repeat the same mistakes. You should be transparent. You should be telling what needs to be done. You should be putting your values first. And that's when I use the authentic malmal that we make, because it's the lightest material. And you would be surprised, the entire dress weighs 90 grams.
Wow.
It's beautiful. And I simply asked the model, how do you feel? Because that day was particularly a little cold. So she was like, it's cold today, but the dress is so light. I feel so happy that, just, and I always ask the models who either photograph for us or who are like at this show, that how do they feel? Because they're professional. They're wearing like 20 pieces in one day when they're walking. And so if they tell me that they loved wearing it and they're comfortable in it, I just feel happy. So yeah, I digressed a little bit. So every piece was an emotion like that, until the last one, which was pride. And that I have finally learned, I have accepted, I am growing in a way that I can put these decolonized version out there. And now I'm happy and I'm walking with pride that I've built a better way for it. So that was the story of the entire collection and how pieces were flowing. When it comes to material, there are three primary materials. This was a spring summer collection, so I used Kala cotton that I mentioned, a lot of it. I used a lot of khadi, which is again rain-fed cotton, hand spun. I used jute, which is again an indigenous fiber that grows in eastern part of India. And then I would say, yeah, those were the three. But most of them were unbleached, except for a couple one where I wanted the shine of natural cotton to come in, the last one particularly. So unbleached, because that does save a lot of water, because bleaching is the step from which cotton starts getting a lot of water usage, apart from the growing part of it. So and you would see a beige palette, a lot of beige palette throughout the collection, beige and white, with hints of colors. Most of the colors where the hint came in were hand block printed with plants like madder and myrobalan, pomegranate peels, onion peels, things like that, to add those emotions in increasing amount of colors. One of my, I would say, one of the pieces I felt so proud after designing was it's a bodycon dress with a very large Ambi motif. It's like sideways, and I guess that dress was basically the peak reclaiming, that we know it started here, we are reclaiming it, but it is still designed for everybody around the world to wear. So it was reclaiming with love and compassion, basically. So those were the materials and colors that we used. Am I missing anything, Adhiraj?
No, not at all. It sounds like such a beautifully emotionally driven collection.
Yeah, it was.
And
It was.
I'm curious as to, because obviously it has so much story behind it. And when you showed in London, which, the kind of the crown of the former colonies, and very distant to the processes and to the artisanal practices that you're referencing. And I wondered sort of what you wanted to get from showing in London, and then maybe also what you hope that people would take away from viewing the collection as well.
The whole idea of showing our decolonized collection at London, which is basically the former empire, which colonized, I mean, prominent ones of the others, was to show that healing can happen with love and respect. It doesn't have to be shouting with revenge that, hey, you did this, so I would do this. No, it's like, okay, this was ours, it was appropriated. Okay, like I said, in their entire story, accept it, done. Now let's start fresh. Let's do it in a way that it's beautiful, it's giving the credit where credit is due, and it's creating a system where we respect the land, the culture, the value, and the origin. So I guess in that way, London was perfect to put this collection out there, to show that it doesn't have to be negative in any sort of way.
I just want to add, and also from a different perspective, to showcase that plant-based fashion can be ramp-worthy. It doesn't have to be synthetic. It doesn't have to have glitter and a certain thing all the time. And London is one of those cities of the world where fashion is accepted, where people are open to new ideas, and wherein it becomes a whole thing. So being from a small town in India, we wanted that exposure. We wanted to present it at the right place where the right people are there, where it is appreciated, and where it can, people follow the trend from. So it was a good
Yeah.
starting point for us.
Yeah, I think as scientists, it was very natural for us to maybe stop at materials and then find brands who would take our material. But then when we found that designers are not asking the question of where the material comes from or where it would go, is the part where we decided to solve that last question as well. So once we became a brand and we decided to make our end products, it was very important to make noise at the right places, and fashion trickles down. You cannot trickle up. You have to be at the ramps, the red carpets to show that beautiful fashion with plant-based materials can, if it can go on ramps on the world stage, it can become part of your wardrobe. The idea, the thought leadership that we want to put ahead, that you have to buy lesser, or we often say very openly that the most sustainable piece is already in your wardrobe and the next one can be Jiwya. So we are not really telling people like go buy. We are telling when you're ready, we are here. Or bring something Jiwya to complement something from your wardrobe and make it a capsule thing. So putting that on the ramp, to Adhiraj's point, really made that difference, that this is how beautiful sustainable fashion can look. You don't have to have that image that just because it is not the material you looked at, it would look a certain kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important message for people to really get to understand, that it's not a compromise. It's something beautiful, and you get something extra from it. And we're just coming to the last couple of minutes. So what we'd like to do to sort of bring our viewers in, who are really grateful to be here, is to ask how you feel that the people who are watching the webinar can contribute to the goals and the aims that you've discussed this evening.
Starting somewhere, simply. I guess I just hinted on that part, that care for your wardrobe as much as you can. And it can have synthetic materials, that's okay. You can figure out applications for it, to layer it with different things, style it different ways. And then, of course, there comes a point. I am that person. I just do not shop. I just do not shop clothes anymore, since even though I am from this industry. And then when I shop, I do have that extra budget. Like, hey, I haven't bought anything for almost a year or more, so I can spend on this particular piece, which is beautiful. And then I keep selling it. So care for your wardrobe and buy better is all I would say. I'm sure Adhiraj will have technical material points.
They're great rules to live by.
I'm just going to simplify it. So how plant-based cosmetics has become a thing, right? Now we know something that goes inside your body, that's plant-based food. Vegan food is becoming a big thing. Plant-based cosmetics, what is the next thing that goes in your skin? On your skin, it's textiles, right? So you buy as much natural fibers as you can. Buy cotton, buy linen, buy hemp, but buy something that soothes your skin, that does not cause irritation. It doesn't have to be very fancy. It has to just be one with your skin. And yeah, and that's how you make one conscious choice at a time. And I think that's how you start building your conscious wardrobe.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great rule, one conscious move at a time for individuals and for businesses. And I think we've learned so much this evening about really building in storytelling and value, and just making changes and not worrying about being perfect. And I have learned a lot as well. I'm really, really grateful for your time. It's been such an interesting conversation. I have a full page of notes, and I'm really looking forward to kind of thinking how I can apply that to my work as well. So I'm really grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to our viewers as well for your time in the evening. Is there anywhere that you want to direct people to, where they can connect with you in future before we wrap up?
I guess our website or our social media is the place. We are a small team, but we take very good efforts in answering every question and every query. If somebody's interested in knowing more, there's a need section on the website where they can sign up for a newsletter, which we send once every quarter, unless something special as London Fashion Week happens, then a newsletter comes in. But basically we talk, and the best part of those newsletters is we talk about styling the existing wardrobe in a small section. So in the chat, there is the website and the story and details that anybody can pick up. So that's the place where anybody can reach us. And yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed your list of questions, Sophie. It was so wonderful to talk in general about what we are doing and how change can happen. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
thank you so much, Sophie. We love what you do. You're a powerhouse in the industry. All that you stand for, it is really inspiring for people like
Yeah.
us. So it's more power to you.
Yeah, I was.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, like I was saying, we have a marketing problem, and you are solving it. So
Oh, thank you so much. That
yeah.
is so kind. Well, it's really been my pleasure. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to talk to you, and just to continue to learn more about you. So we'll wrap here. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time, and I'm sure we will connect on other platforms in future. So
Yeah,
thanks so much. Take care, everyone, and good night.
absolutely. Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.